William Neary, Hate Quilt, the short screenplay winner. Talking to him from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. How's it going, Will?
Good, Matthew.
Okay, so you saw you wrote the script, Hate Quilt. It won for a contest. We read it, and it's online right now. What were your initial reactions when you saw it?
It was great. It's always great to see your work read by actors, and then have some life put into it. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, we were talking on the internet, like on email, about like how you kind of saw the sisters differently, portrayed a little bit differently than what it was on the stage, I guess.
Yeah, and I've had conversations about this with some other friends, and I think there could be a few things. First of all, the screenplay was rewritten a couple times before, for other contests, and also to conform to some of the parameters of yours. So I think in the rewriting, maybe some of it was lost. Maybe Rachel wasn't really seen as a protagonist the way she was written. But that was the one thing I thought. Maybe, interpretations of people's writing can go, how many different directions. But
no, but that's part of it's a collaborative medium. Like the initial blueprint of the script gets passed to the producer, gets passed to the director, gets passed to the casting director. In this case, gets passed to the actors. So there's a lot of like generations in the process, I guess, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, and I think that what I'm learning, the more I get to work with other people now, what I'm learning is if something gets lost in translation that I think is really important, I have to go revisit it and make sure that that those parameters are still intact and that they can't be moved. If they get moved, it's going to be obvious, that sort of thing.
But sometimes it's like I said, sometimes there's happy like surprises about like someone's portrayal of a character that you wrote, and it's something that you never imagined, but it's a little bit, I don't want to say better, but it's obviously like it's different than what you kind of pictured, I guess, right?
Sure, yeah, that also happens too. I think as long, and there's something that you mentioned about serving the story. I think as long as the story is being served properly, other things can, nothing has to really be exactly as it's written on the screenplay. And even like some attitudes could actually be a little different. I might add some dimension that you didn't consider before. So I totally agree with that. As long as the story is being served properly and the dynamics are working, those changes are definitely acceptable.
But you like, just in terms of an actor's portrayal, like you wrote this is an actor's driven script. Like the two performances need to be key in order for the film to succeed, I guess, right?
Exactly. It's so character and dialogue driven that. And I guess the one thing about the recording was that the audio was a little difficult to hear, and I thought that was, the projection, like, it's so dialogue driven and like character behavior driven that, and I know it's just basically it's a reading. So I didn't really think too hardly about that, but that's also important.
Yeah, 100%. So, what is your thematic? Like, what's the point? What's the purpose of this short? Like, what's it trying to say?
That's a very good question. I think that I didn't really, have a clean idea. I think it was just about having a person who's reluctant to accept change, have change sort of, fall in her lap, and then challenge her to fight against it until she winds up changing from, a bitter person into accepting, and I think that I've learned a lot through the conversations we're having and through some other people I've talked to who've read it and watched the reading. Yeah, there's a couple more drafts that need to be written on this to really punch that up a little bit.
So what are you trying to say? Like, what do you want to say now after all the whole like the drafts? Like, what's the story about?
I think it's about it's something that one of your readers mentioned about nurturing hatred and releasing it. And I think it needs to be a little simpler in a way, like that's sort of abstract. It's really hard to I think I'm going toward the whole reluctance to change thing, and have the stakes a little bit higher for Rachel, so we see that she's the one that this story is about.
Yeah, 100%. So, like, that's a kind of a good little line there. One of the readers said that, like, in the coverage that you got.
Oh yeah, that was great, because when you get feedback like that, it helps you understand your story better if you don't have it solid from the beginning. If you're just you're really going through the characters and through the motions and you're having fun with it, and you sort of get lost in the trees a little bit, and you don't really know what it's about. You just know that it's fun.
Yeah. What did you like? Why this story? Like, you're a male, you live in the middle of America. Like, why about two sisters? Like, where did the seed come from?
I have no idea. I was at work one day, and I was writing other things at the time, and it just occurred to me, from my back of my brain. It's like something about a quilt and a mousy woman. How, the craft itself is really interesting, I find, and crazy quilts are, they're the most fun to look at, and it just sort of built itself on this idea about I want to see a quilt and I want to see someone who embroiders everything she doesn't like on it, and it just took off from there.
Did you have any siblings yourself, or?
Yeah, I have an older sister, so that helped a little bit. In my memory of sibling rivalry, that kind of it helps some of the.
Your older sister has a quilt and all the hatred things about you. Is that is that where you got it from?
No, it's not that literal. It's definitely not that literal. But I think that it's a huge caricature of that sort of dynamic, and you don't want to make it interesting. It's not it's not a reflection of real life. It's actually kind of a circus. Like, I have this circus feel that I felt was important about it too. And also the first coverage I got was about 4 or 5 years ago.
Okay.
Your coverage said, and it made sense, but I was a little upset because it said you spent a lot of your exposition in the scene description. And I said, yeah, it's a shooting script. It's ready to go.
Yeah.
But I revisited it later, and I thought, oh, well, this, I'm going to adjust this, and I'm going to follow, that direction and see what happens with it. And here we are.
Shorts are different because generally speaking, like, from the rest of our features and the TV scripts that get done, because shorts are different because generally speaking, the features in the TV scripts are spec scripts. They're not going to. Generally speaking, they probably won't get made. They're probably just for producers and agents to see someone's basically like skills as a writer, so they can hire them as a writer. Where shorts, like, a lot of people will make these shorts into films, right? So the shooting script idea makes sense, but I guess a lot of our readers are always looking at things from a spec point of view. You know what I mean?
Right. No, that's true. Well, that's the other thing too. I when I was really getting into writing, when I really started getting into writing, creating stories and writing screenplays, some of the person that was my reader, we just kept running with it until the point where we're like, okay, let's go shoot it.
Yeah.
But he's off doing other things. Like, this was kind of unrealistic, because now every time you find other people who are interested in it, you have to take 8 steps back and go through it all over again.
Well, maybe 1 step back, but yeah, for 4 steps forward.
Yeah, I usually take 4 to 8.
As long as you take steps back, as long as there's more forward motion and the steps back, then that's fine.
Yeah, and that's what seems to be, like, the first thing is to get someone who, like, to have your work accepted for your contest, and because it gives it some legitimacy, and then start kind of redeveloping old things or redeveloping this in a way,
You want to make this? You were saying in the email you want to direct this film.
That's how I start thinking of it. I have a very good vision of it, and I think that some of the filmmakers I've met in Pittsburgh, who I've worked with, I've been on their sets, and so I'm getting a little more practical, knowledge that I think it's time to, like, actually put the vision into the script more as well. Like, if we're going to go forward and shoot.
Sure. Yeah.
And if someone else, winds up being a better director because they're more comfortable with it, like, there's no ego involved with, oh, it's my piece, you can't direct it. But that's how I'll begin, as a fail-safe. Then, But if somebody has, if we have, if we agree on a vision, then the director takes it off from there. Then like I would just be helping in some other capacity, or maybe dual directors, who knows. But that's what that's kind of how I'm creeping them.
Well, from my experience, because I've made a ton of short films. Basically, I always look at the 5% theory, meaning that when you bring somebody onto your, especially one of the major collaborators, like the lead actor or the cinematographer or the editor or the sound designer or the director, of course, is basically as soon as you bring somebody onto your film, they have to add 5% to that project, and they can either take away 5%, or they can add 5%. And you're always looking for someone to, like, if there's a director there and he can add 5% to your script, then basically hire them. You know what I mean? If they don't, then basically don't hire them.
So how do you mean, like, 5%?
Meaning that, like, your script is a blueprint, right? So the blueprint is there. It's ready to go. So it's like building a building, right? And so basically you have to have key collaborators, funders, whatever you want to call it, to make a building, to create a project, right? And basically there's always keys to any project, and basically that person's got to understand your thematic, your story, and basically they can add to your story or they can take away from your story and change your story. So you're always looking for someone to add to your story to make it that much better. But it all comes from the seed of your thematic.
Oh, right. Yeah, I've tried to collaborate with some people in the past who were really interested in completely rewriting.
Of course, and then that's the people you don't work with.
Right, exactly, and especially even the notes and suggestions. Actually, okay, the sense of humor is completely different. Like you're missing. Yeah, so
yeah.
I had to back away from a lot of those things. But I guess what I'm finding is what you're telling me about now. The people who are spending the time, who have thoughtful feedback and actually give you suggestions. Like some of the suggestions a friend of mine made yesterday, I actually have in the 24-page version a lot of his suggestions.
Yeah.
And so I want to bring some of that back, and then punch up a lot of the the drama, like a little bit more drama, make it a little more circusy,
But I guess what I'm trying to say is that you know the heart, right? So even with our readers, like our readers give you like a page of coverage or whatever it is, you know the heart. So basically, if they're saying something that's about your heart, then you pay attention to it. If they're saying something that's off your heart radar, I mean in the thematic of your film, then basically you don't pay attention to it.
Oh, sure,
yeah.
That's like the other feedback from another contest I sent it to. I had to cut that down to 12 pages. You went from 24 to 17 to 12. And there's so much that got lost in the 12-page version that the feedback I got was analogous to like a reality show.
Yeah.
Who wants to see two people yelling at each other on screen? That was just one of the feedback out of 5 that I thought completely missed the point.
Yeah.
I kind of laughed at it. I'm like, you're thinking, you're watching too much TV.
Yeah.
But it was fun. Yeah, it's funny.
Exactly. So, Will, but you wrote a good script. It won. It got read. So hopefully this will take you off into another level. That's all our wish is.
That's great. Yeah, and I appreciate it too. This is that's pretty much what I want to do, is get involved with this sort of creative ventures.
All right. Good luck.
All right. Thank you, Matthew.
Thank you.